Sunday, and the presentation today is on rooster birds crowing at the Niles. Last week we had the Last Supper, and when Jesus does that, we often have two messages, at least two. One is the literal one, which we usually get pretty good. One of you will deny me. Of course, that's Judas, right? And we'll see here and elsewhere, it looks like the disciples all said things like, "Is it me?" And, what are you giving this woman all these riches, these oil for? And then later they blamed it on the person who wasn't around, Judas, since they wrote him as if he were responsible, but all the disciples said something similar. So the one who denied, or who betrayed him was Judas. The word for betray is pretty much the same word, comes from the same root as tradition. You betray someone, you hand them over. You tradition, you hand it over to your kids. And so those words are essentially the same word. And since Peter represents the church, there's this underlying secondary meaning. One of you will tradition me. And we see that we have lots of evidence where the church later would do that. And then that follows through the churches today. And we have all these traditions. And you have to ask yourself, are we traditioning Jesus, or do we still remember the real meaning of Easter, just like Christmas? So we have that. The verse part we're looking at today is denials. Jesus said unto him, "Verily I say unto you, that this night before the rooster crow, thou shalt deny me thrice." And we're going to look at that because they moved the words around. It's a little more ambiguous than you would think. And once we realize that the birds are not used in a good sense, we have the rooster bird crowing at Peter's denial, cluck, 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 electos, electros, and we get the rooster, and we get the elect, and so forth. And so it's interesting. Since Peter denies Christ, and the denies is a play on words with birds, as in uses deceptive logic to deceive people. Has the church ever denied Jesus? Have they ever burdened him? Have they ever done things to hide things from you so you don't know what Jesus was actually saying? And so that's part of the thing here. Let's look at a few things on birds. Matthew 6, "Behold the fowls of the air, for they sow not, neither do they reap, nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feedeth them. Are ye not much better than they?" That word better always means different. It meant different then. It means different today. It means different in most of the places in the Greek New Testament, except they changed 3 or 4 places like this with the birds to make you think you're better. You should be different. Isn't that nice? The Father feedeth them. He feeds them. Now, they don't sow, they don't reap, they don't gather. Because Jesus sows, the angels reap, and the Father gets them into the barns, stores them. The only thing left is the growing season, and that's when the birds will pick the bushes clean. Yeah. Now, I've used this joke before. 26 sheep, shepherd had 26 sheep, one died, how many are left? Because it's hard to tell the difference between 26 sheep and 26 sheep. That S slides. It does in other languages too. So when he says uranius trephi and uranius trephi, you can hardly tell the difference. In fact, this same play on words is true in this Greek today. So the English is "in the heaven feeds them." Isn't it nice? The play on words in heaven turns away from them. Why? Because they're not doing what they're supposed to do. They're picking the bushes clean when they're supposed to be helping. So there's a play on words there. It's interesting, and I noticed this after doing that Spiros Zodhiates died in 2009. He did a lot of good work with missions and the Bible, and he was Greek, and he had a lot of things on the Greek. I listen to his Greek New Testament a lot, as do some seminaries use it, others don't. When he does this verse, in Greek, you're supposed to keep going. It's all one sentence, and you put it together. He stops and says, Uranius, then there's a big pause, awkward, Trephi, because he knows there's a play on words there. He doesn't want to sound like it's God's turning from him, so he just puts an extra pause in there that seems very unusual. I thought that was interesting. Whosoever shall deny me before men, him I will also deny before my Father which is in heaven. Now, arnisita means to deny. Ornisita means bird. It's the o, which is very close, omicron. So arnisita, and you can make up words anytime you want that fit all the pattern. Ornisita. So he's using, if you bird me before men, I'm going to bird you too. Now you've heard of ornithology as being birds. That's where the ornisita means you're going to bird. Arnisita means you're going to deny. And this isn't just here, it's some other places. It's interesting. Are not two sparrows sold for a farthing, and one of them shall not fall on the ground without your Father? Remember, this was the one cookie rule? Selling means to sell yourself out, take a bribe or something like that. The sparrows are the, truthia, and the sariu is the farthing, which is a play on words with it's a Roman coin, play on words with a bird call, which is what it was. They sell themselves out. Not one of them will fall. All the birds are selling themselves and others out. They're all going to fall. And we say, oh, not even one will fall. No, they're all going to fall because it's the way it's worded there. Now, and some say, oh, those birds are so pretty. They sound so nice. They make me feel so good. Have you ever watched a bird clean out your blueberry bush of every blueberry ready to be picked? That's our bush. That's the one that they picked. And my wife said, oh, and she thought they were so nice. She told me they're so pretty. And I thought, yeah, the false teachers are so pretty. They sound so nice, like a sales pitch. They make me feel so good. No worries, right? And so Jesus used every place I can find the birds. That's what he does. And he uses 3 different words for birds, and they all have the same connotation. Where do we get that? The parable of the sower. And he sowed some seeds that fell by the wayside, and the fowls, the birds, came and devoured them. Then Jesus explains what the parable means. When you hear the word, the reasoning of the kingdom, and you don't understand it, cometh the wicked one, or someone working for him, the birds. They come, and they catch you away. They are arpazi. They harpoon you and take you away. Because that harpazi is where the word harpoon comes from. So you think of a harpoon taking you away, that's where the word comes from. It's also used for what's called the rapture, where it looks like they're going to take away the bad ones and not the good ones. Those elect, the birds. Catches what was sown in his heart. That's where we get and here Jesus tells you that evil one, the birds, that's what they do. And so if you don't know, you can be separated by what you don't know. And the saying is, you'll be birdseed. Yeah. Another place, the foxes have holes, the birds of the air have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. What does that mean? Well, what do you mean the birds of the air? They have nests. Now, if you look at the Wycliffe there, it says Britties. You see that? Britties there. No one knows where the English word bride comes from, but the leading candidate is the word for bird, brid. Briddy changed to bride. No one knows that for sure, but that's the leading candidate. The birds of the air. You know that same word means birds of heaven? And you're supposed to use your head when you think of things, right? Your mind. Ever heard someone say, I'm going to pull it out of the backside? Well, that without even changing a letter, ura means tail, still means tail, and nu means mind, as in nous, it still means mind. When he uses that genitive there, possessive, birds of the air, that uranu is tail of the mind. Your mind's supposed to be in your head, not in your tail. And when Jesus does this, every place he uses that uranu, it fits. And when he wants to say something else like the heavens, he'll say uranis. He'll use accusative or dative or nominative. So I look very carefully at how each word is, those words are used, and I'll notice patterns. Oh, and I realize uranu, yeah, that's tail and mind. And then I look, does it fit? And it appears to fit. Yeah. And there's another. Now, when he says foxes have holes, if you've ever learned the analogy like Nebuchadnezzar being the root and the root will be left, the root of the tree, that human organization and empire, is the leader. He calls Herod a fox, and Herod, he's not really in control. Rome controls everything. So when he says foxes have holes, he means Herod's not even a real leader. He just has it from Rome. He isn't even a root. He has to have a little nest next to the tree instead of so we have that little dig there. And I used to think this was good until I analyzed it carefully. O Jerusalem, Jerusalem, thou that killest the prophets and stonest them that were sent to thee, how often I would gather thy children together, even as a hen gathereth the chickens under her wings, and ye would not. I thought, well, that sounds good. How do we get birds out of that being bad? When I went through and looked at each word and carefully looked at it and analyzed it in the context of where it was, he's saying, how often I, like you snakes, would or could have gathered together in my den of thieves, your children in the way a bird in an evil cave gathers her sick, weak, diseased chicks or little birds under the wings of the temple, breaking the Father. And you did not care nor want to, you Satan. So when you get that, he's being facetious and saying, I could do what you're doing, taking advantage of all the people, but I'm not doing that. It took me a while to figure out how that fit in until I analyzed the whole thing, and we went through that a while back. So the whole idea of this first part is Jesus does not use the birds in a good sense. Therefore, the rooster bird is also not in a good sense. So they just had the Last Supper. He said, one of you will betray me, which was Judas literally betraying him, and Peter, as the church, it appears, would later tradition him. So they sung a hymn. There was no hymn or haw about it. They just did the hymn and then they hauled out of there, right? Hymn or haw, yeah. And they went into the Mount of Olives. The Mount of Olives is the high part, right? And then they came over that hill and so forth to get into Jerusalem from Bethany to avoid the Jericho road. And then at the bottom is where you process, you press the olives, right? Get the useful part out. And that's the Gethsemane in Aramaic is the olive press. So the Mount of Olives is the top, the olive press, Gethsemane, is at the bottom. So they're singing a hymn. Yeah. Then Jesus said, all of you shall be offended of me this night, for it is written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered abroad. Now, all does not mean all as in everyone in the universe or every single person. All means, in Greek here, it means in the context in which you're at. Now, Judas has left, right? He's going to betray him. He had to get out of there early. So we know when he says all of you, he's referring to what? The 10 that are left, or 11 that are left. Judas is gone. Now, later, some of the books in Paul, I've noticed there's a lot of all, meaning everything. And some of those books don't look like they're written by Paul. They're written by after this all became common by people who didn't know. All doesn't mean all. You need to limit it. Is written, yeah. Okay, the because is added. Helps support the translation. Now that offended, that's important there. And he says, in me. And we have the 3 times. That offended comes from the Latin word. It's not what the Greek word meant. The Greek word meant to be entrapped. And is Jesus going to entrap you, ensnare you? Well, he says, in me. You're entrapped in me. And it appears you're going to misinterpret what he said, like the birds come. The birds come and you don't understand. You're going to misinterpret what Jesus says. Here's the verse in Matthew. And happy is he who does not misinterpret in me. We have that. It's like General Akbar, remember Star Wars? It's a trap. And think of that, it's a trap. And so we have that offend. How did we get offend? Remember those mountains being moved, definitions being moved? In Latin, offendo had 2 meanings. One was snare, trap, and the other is to attack, like an offensive lineman, football analogy, or you're offensive. That's where it comes. You're actually attacking. When you say it offends me, you're saying it attacks me. That's the Latin word. That's not what the Greek word meant. So it means ensnares me. We see this. So the verse before, we have, the blind receive their sight, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, and the deaf hear, the dead are raised up, and the poor have the gospel preached to them. And from my computer science background in problem solving, I'm used to top-down design a lot. So I look, and in this case, it makes more sense backwards, and if I put the actual meanings in, it fits more. Jesus is saying what you should be doing. You should preach the good news. We're going backwards. Raised means wake up. Wake up, you deadhead. Listen to what I'm saying. And listen and understand. That's the deaf hearing. And be cleansed on the outside. Be born again. That's the lepers getting cleansed on the outside. Cleansed in the blood. The lame walk. You need to start walking in righteousness. And then you're cleansed on the inside and you look up and see God and others. The blind seeing. So we have this underlying meanings there. And what happened? Some churches look at it and say, we need to have programs for the poor, give the poor, all this money. We need to have hearing aids. We need to have things to help see. We need to help walk, help leprosy. That's all good. So Jesus says that. What's the next statement? And the next statement, it's down at the bottom. And happy is he who is not ensnared or entrapped or misinterprets in me what I say. He just told you some things, and he says, don't be ensnared or misinterpret what I said. So all those physical things are good, but that's the underlying message there. He said, all of you will be entrapped this night, for it's written, I will smite the shepherd, and the sheep of the flock shall be scattered abroad. Now, all 11 of these are going to be entrapped and snared, not just Peter. Didn't he say all 11, all of you? So we can't find something that just pertains to Peter. It has to be everyone in some sense. Peter's going to be the representation for the literal one of there. And let's see. The sheep will be scattered. How's that entrapment? If all the sheep get away, were they entrapped? Were they ensnared? They all got away. And so that's not going to work too well. And Jesus will go to the garden. We're going to skip the Gethsemane and praying in the garden and then falling asleep. But there were only 3 there. He said all 11 are going to be entrapped. So that may not work too well for that. He says, but after I am risen again, they didn't know he was going to rise. It means after I wake up again. If you are dead, you wake up, that's resurrected, but the word just means to wake up. And you need a context for the resurrection. And he had resurrected Lazarus, which means he had woken him up. Agiro. So they might misinterpret that, but it doesn't appear to be a serious issue. Peter then answers. Remember, Peter represents the church. Though all men, but men isn't there. It's like all the others, all the other 10, because he's one of the 11, shall be entrapped in you, misinterpret you. I will never be misinterpreted or be entrapped in you. Notice Jesus says this night. Peter makes a blanket statement that appears to be for all time. Will the church ever misinterpret what Jesus says? Because that's who Peter represents. So we need examples of that, and we can find your own there. Yeah, the if. And so we have the words there. Peter doesn't put a restriction on. Peter represents the church. Remember in Matthew 16, Jesus says unto thee, I say, thou art Peter, and upon this rock, the Greek is Petros, Petra, it meant rock, and also Kephas was the Aramaic word, Kephas. I will build my church, ecclesia, gathering of believers, not the word we use for church. And the gates of hell shall not be at full strength against it, but they kind of changed those words. So we have that with the church being a building and so forth. Peter represents the church. To this point, we have the following. Jesus says all the 11 will misinterpret in him this night. Peter says he will never, no restriction, be entrapped or misinterpreted. Who's right? The church says they will never be entrapped or misinterpret. Right? They give pronouncements, like the church would start giving pronouncements from the chair as if they were infallible. Right? Teachers sat to teach, but we have that ex cathedra in Latin, which is the Latin tradition, that from out of the chair the Pope will make infallible pronouncements. So we have that idea. So what we have, Jesus says, all you 11 will be entrapped in me this night. And they get away, so the second part doesn't apply. Peter says, I will never be. Jesus says, verily I say unto thee. And when he uses that, it's a symmetric type of little play on words that says, compare what I just said to what I'm going to say. And then he says, verily I say unto you, that this night, before the rooster crows, you shall deny me 3 times. It's a singular, so it's not all of them. He's talking to Peter. Peter, of course, would represent the church if that connection fits. Now, you see, I can't put a mark at. You see, in the Greek, you see the tres. I can't mark it with my current one, but it depends where the comma goes. The 3 times is in the middle, and they move it to the end. Before a rooster voices or crows 3 times, you will deny me. There's the rooster crowing 3 times. Before a rooster voices or crows 3 times, you will deny me. So in Greek, the 3 times can go with the first part of the rooster doing it 3 times. It can go with Peter 3 times, or it can be just a play on words, tres, as in a tree, if you want to play on words for the secondary meaning. So some editions will decide on how that should be parsed. Where the comma is placed, it might then make a difference. The tres and dries. Dries was a word for an oak tree. It's used in the Septuagint. It's related to the word for druid. It's the druid culture, which was tree-based, in England. So that's where the word comes from. And Jesus never uses the word 3 in a good sense. I have a whole list of those. The Trinity came in a few hundred years later based on certain things, and so you can't use your Trinity as the example of Jesus using 3 in a good sense. Now, in the Middle Ages, the Catholic Church wanted each parish church, that's the area around the church, to have a rooster to remind everyone of Peter's denial. So most of these churches, you needed a weather vane, right, to see where the wind was going? And they said you had to put a rooster on the church. So if you're a smart engineer and you say, well, why are we going to do 2 of those? What do? You put the rooster as part of the weather vane, so you only have to put it up one place. And that's what they did. There's a famous rooster on Notre Dame Cathedral. There's the old one and the new one. We also have the apostolic clock in Hershey nearby, and Peter's denial, and all the disciples go back, and when Judas comes through, Jesus turns around, looks the other way. Anyone ever been there at Hershey? See that? The clock? Yes, it's over there. So we have the different verses. I'm not going to go through them. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Mark and Luke, what different people remember. John put that in there. There are little differences. Some people get all worked up about the little differences and try to reconcile them. But we get the general idea here of what Jesus said. We don't have time to go through each one of those. Peter does deny Christ 3 times, it's said. The rooster does crow. If you've ever listened to a rooster in the morning, they start crowing and they keep crowing all day long. So whether it's 1, 3, or 100, that's what they do. Yeah, that's what roosters do. Might Peter have misinterpreted what Jesus said to the extent that he deceived himself? Peter was all worked up that he denied him, but there's also an underlying meaning there. How many people would say they never deny Christ? How many people may have misinterpreted things Jesus or Christ has said? Well, if you misinterpret, it's very similar to denying. And the evil one, the bird, will take you away. There we have that church. Peter represents the church. Jesus associates John the Baptist with Elijah. We're going to skip that part. He also associates himself with Jonah. There's some play on words and other things there. If you remember, I had come up with what I call the 10-pin model, where we have the 7 pins at the bottom. And you're in node 1, and that's the poor in spirit. You need to make a decision of going up to node 5, the wide area, the treasure in the field, the living bread, or you can go the other route, the scattered path. And the first one is 2, which is the 10 commandment for misrepresenting or lying. You get deceived. Then you go to 3, which is where you get stolen from with oaths, and we get the big tree, like the big tree the church came under Constantine. You go to 4 with adultery, and you're on the way to the whole scattered path. So if I paraphrase the secondary meaning of what Jesus said, he said that in this coming night, and remember with Jonah, we had day, 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 night, 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 or night, 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 day, day, day the other way. We don't know, but before the elect, the rooster, voices, we got a tree, which is in node 3, the church will deny me or bird me, misinterpret what I'm saying. And that starts with the disciples and everyone following. They misinterpreted. They didn't understand the secondary meaning. And all those weeds in number 2, that's Ignatius and Clement and others, have all these little policies and ideas that go into what became the Catholic Church, which went to the Protestant Church, which went to all those traditions, went to churches today. So this is a secondary meaning. Yeah, secondary meaning, yeah. And what I've presented is a model that fits what the words say, the secondary meaning, and so forth. And people often use their own opinion or glory to find a model guilty. I take this from the 90s. If the model fits, you must acquit. Remember hearing that? So it's just a model. What you have to do is decide, does the model fit? And what do I do with the model? And that's what you have to do. And then I come back, okay, if you don't like it, what's your model for what the disciples and Peter, the church, misinterpreted about what Jesus said? You gotta, if he says you're going to misinterpret in me, you're going to be deceived, you're going to be entrapped in me and what I say, you have to find something in those verses that they were entrapped in. And interestingly, they didn't even realize they were entrapped. They went with the literal model, and they didn't we misinterpreted that. We misinterpreted and changed a lot of what you said. And Jesus put in there, yeah, I told you before, that's what you were going to do. So there we have it, rooster birds crowing at the Niles on Easter Sunday, 2026.